And she's like, you always contact me on the day of, and it makes me feel like an after.
Okay, I don't normally defend men on my platform, so listen up. First of all, this creator is fabulous. She has some amazing rants about relationships. Go check her out if you haven't already. I love this video too. But she's basically talking about how if you are in a relationship with an adult man, that you should not have to hold their hand and teach them things. And that, she's talking about a video where a woman had to do basically just that, is decide that I don't want to be this man's teacher at his age. I want somebody who already knows how to do things and put in the effort themselves. And that's perfectly fair, valid point. Everything is about what you are comfortable with, what your boundaries are personally. However, I do want to say the other side of this just a little bit. So I met my boyfriend when he was 41 years old. So again, like this video, that's a person of a big age. And for the first few weeks, it was great. Like, he was always asking to see me. It was like 3 times a week. And then he moved, and it was like pulling teeth. And after about a month, I was like, hey, you're texting me once or twice a day, and you're only seeing me once every 2 to 3 weeks. I don't know if you're just not interested. That's fine if you're not, but this is not sustainable for me. If you want a relationship with me, you have to make time for me. And at 41 years old, this man was literally like, oh, I didn't realize this. And now look, if you are not new here, you know my background, you know my history with liars and cheaters and manipulators. This guy gave me none of those vibes. So that's kind of why I decided to put up with it more than I would have with other people. But sincerely, I have had to tell my 41-year-old boyfriend multiple times things that I have never had to tell other people that I was dating, such as, hey, you stay friends with all of your exes, and that's not necessarily a problem. However, you are like having inappropriate levels of contact with some of them. Like, I'm not cool with that. They are your exes, not your currents. You should not be running off to play Captain Save-A-Ho whenever they want something from you. Like, no, not having it. And he's like, oh, really? And he didn't love it, but he, did things to change it. And I guess that's really a key factor here, at least for me. If you tell somebody, hey, there's a problem, and they acknowledge it and then keep doing the thing that's the problem, they're not fixing it. They're not the right person for you, sis. Sorry, that's just how it is. They're being manipulative. They are not actually doing anything to change. But if you tell somebody, hey, I don't like that you did this, and they fix it, I mean, that tells me a lot personally. So should you tolerate having to hold a man's hand and teach him how to be in a relationship with you? It's a tricky subject, and it depends on where you are with your life, what you want to tolerate, the kind of vibes you're getting from this guy. But is it always necessarily a terrible thing? No, because if they are hearing you and they're like, oh, well, when I dated this other person, they like things like, A, and you like things like X. So it's a really big difference for me. I want to make you happy. I'm just doing it wrong. And if your partner is willing to work on it and fix it, and again, fixing it is the key thing here, not like changing for a few days and then going back to treating you the way you didn't like, but actually making real, tangible, measurable changes, then yeah, maybe it is worth it to do some hand holding to have the kind of relationship that you're happy with. Does that work out every time? Absolutely not. But does that mean that every guy who needs some hand-holding is going to be a bad guy or a bad relationship or something that you shouldn't mess with? Also, absolutely not. And as it turned out with the guy I'm dating now, his longest relationship was about a year and a half, and that was all the way when he was back in college. So he's been floundering basically for his entire adult life, jumping from relationship to relationship to relationship because his partners would get sick of him, didn't want to tell him things, didn't want to be like, hey, I don't like that you're doing this. Hey, I need you to fix that. And instead that they would just cut and run and let him go. And like, I get it from their perspective. I do not blame them for that. But he legitimately made it all the way to 41 without knowing how to really be in a relationship because nobody ever stopped to say, hey, I need you to batten down the hatches and figure out what you're doing. Like, you're going all over the place, if that made any sense. You know, instead of telling him, hey, I need you to do A, B, and C, they would just be like, ugh, this dude, and ghost him. And there were times where I felt like, wow, he must not really like me because he's not doing the things that I require in a relationship. But then again, as soon as I told him, hey, I require these things, he's like, oh, you know, light bulb flicker on. Okay, I'm going to do that now. And he pretty consistently has. I mean, there's always a little bit of like, oh, hey, I messed this thing up, or backsliding or whatever, but not in any way that's significant enough to be like, oh no, forget this guy. He's a liar. He's a manipulator. He's not worth my time. So yeah, I mean, long story short, sorry to rant here and ramble, but there are relationships that can be worth the hand-holding if you do have the patience and capacity to be a teacher, to say, hey, this is how I need you to treat me. This is how I need you to love me. This is what I expect from you. Here are where the boundaries are. Because, I mean, he really did have kind of a fair point in some of this, that other girls I've dated didn't feel this way. They didn't think this way, or they didn't give him enough of a chance to let him learn from it. And with his ADHD, he was really going his entire adult life going, I have no idea why nobody wants to stay with me. And I'm like, honey, I got some notes. And because he took those notes and he's been very good about keeping up with them, I love him dearly. It is the best relationship I've had in my life, but it was not easy to get there. I mean, I literally had to tell this man, no, you're not going to cancel plans that you've had with me for 3 months because your buddy came into town and he wants to hang out. Like, it's not happening. Like, you have got to prioritize me. And he legitimately seemed to have no clue that that's what needs to happen. So, moral of the story, men can be kind of dumb, so it's not always malicious.